Hello and welcome to Train Signal. You're watching vSphere 5.1 Virtual Machine Enhancements. We'll start this lesson off by talking about the new version of virtual machine hardware in vSphere 5.1 called Virtual Machine Hardware version 9. Virtual Machine Hardware version 9 offers a number of new improvements. First off, the virtual machines that you create can be 2 times larger than any previous release. That includes 64-way symmetric multiprocessing, reclamation of virtual storage, which is available when using VMware View virtual machines only, up to 1 terabyte of virtual RAM per virtual machine, and hardware 3D graphics support with a virtual graphic processing unit. Again, that one's only available in VMware View only. So a couple major new improvements for VMware View, and in general, more CPU and more virtual memory capacity for these virtual machines. That additional performance capacity is going to allow you to run even larger Tier 1 applications in your VMware virtual infrastructure. Also, hardware version 9 supports the latest guest operating systems, including Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012, support for the latest Intel and AMD CPUs. Those include the AMD Piledriver and the Intel Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge CPU families. With hardware version 9, you'll be able to eliminate reboots when you upgrade VMware tools on your virtual machines. That does not, unfortunately, include the latest version when you install VMware tools for vSphere 5.1, but in the future, you will no longer have to reboot your virtual machines when you install the VMware tools. So, not this time, but next time, but you need to upgrade to vSphere 5.1 virtual machine tools in order to enable that feature in the future. And then finally, there's access to low-level CPU counters from inside the guest operating system. And this will give you greater performance visibility. Something else you'll find new in vSphere 5.1 is something called VM compatibility. And what you'll really find is this is just a new way of thinking about your virtual machines and what version of vSphere they're compatible with. So virtual machine hardware has now been renamed and it's now called virtual machine compatibility. So instead of saying I'm using virtual machine hardware 9, you can say I'm using virtual machine compatibility with vSphere 5.1. This means that there's no need to match vSphere versions with virtual machine hardware versions, but this is only available in the web user interface. And when I go and show you how to create a new virtual machine here in just a second, and some of these new features, you'll see this new virtual machine compatibility nomenclature. So how do you upgrade virtual machine hardware? Well, let's go find out. Here we are in the VMware vSphere web client, and really to do anything with virtual machines, I'm just going to go into the virtual machines and templates inventory. In here I've got a number of virtual machines. First, let's look at this WordPress server. This virtual machine I can see up here underneath compatibility is not only out of date, but its VMware tools are also out of date. So again, I said the virtual machine hardware has been renamed virtual machine compatibility, and you see that here in the vSphere web client. This virtual machine's compatibility is for ESX 4.1 and later, and it says in parentheses, the older virtual machine hardware version is version 7. So how would we update that? Well, in the case of virtual machine hardware, we need to actually power off the virtual machine or shut it down. So I'm just going to go here and shut down the guest operating system. Then I'll go into the Manage tab, and here underneath Settings, you see virtual machine hardware. You can see down here the compatibility that we saw earlier. I'll just select Edit here. And notice down here again at the bottom, it says the compatibility, again, ESX 4.1. Here's the upgrade information here. What I can do is I can schedule virtual machine compatibility upgrade, and then I can make it compatible with a certain version of VMware vSphere. In this case, we want it to be vSphere 5.1 and later. That'll give us virtual machine hardware version 9, which will give us the best performance and latest features as it points out here. I'll go down and say OK. Let's check on our tasks over here on the right-hand side. We can see a number of tasks are running. And then this virtual machine will be upgraded the next time it's powered on. So if I go to the Summary tab here, our compatibility is still out of date. I'll go to Actions. And power on the virtual machine. And then notice the compatibility change right up here on the top. And then also down here underneath the virtual machine hardware tab, our compatibility has been upgraded. And it says upgrade succeeded. So notice how easy it is there to upgrade your virtual machine compatibility, which was previously known as virtual machine hardware. And now let's move on and talk about upgrading VMware tools with vSphere 5.1. New with VMware vSphere 5.1, the VMware Tools driver management system has been upgraded and improved to reduce the number of reboots needed when you upgrade VMware Tools. Now, this applies to Windows virtual machines only, Windows Vista, and later, but after you upgrade to VMware Tools 5.1, VMware Tools upgrades beyond that will not require a reboot. So you see here a virtual machine. We just upgraded this virtual machine's compatibility, but the VMware tools are also out of date. So we need to upgrade the VMware tools. Of course, that will require a reboot, but with Windows virtual machines in future versions of VMware tools, you will no longer have to perform that reboot. So that's a welcome improvement in my opinion. Let's go over to our vSphere web client, and I'll just quickly step you through the process of upgrading VMware tools. Here in the VMware vSphere web client, to upgrade VMware tools and install VMware tools in virtual machines, of course, I'll go into the virtual machine and templates inventory. And then I've got a couple of virtual machines in here that are in need of help related to the VMware tools. Let's go ahead and close out the recent task pane there. And you can see here, this WordPress server virtual machine says right here, VMware tools are out of date on this virtual machine. You can see up here, VMware tools, it says they are running, but they are out of date. So to upgrade the VMware tools, of course, it's very easy here to just click on Upgrade VMware Tools, and then you need to go through the process of either doing an automatic upgrade or an interactive upgrade. Of course, the interactive upgrade is just like installing an application inside the operating system. So you're upgrading the existing VMware tools with a new installation of VMware tools. The automatic upgrade is done without any interaction in the guest operating system, and if required, the guest operating system will be automatically rebooted. So I'm going to choose that option here on this WordPress server. I'll just click Upgrade. And if we check our task on the right-hand side here, we can see that we have initiated a VMware Tools upgrade. And now it says VMware Tools are not running and not installed. And I'll go ahead and pin the task panel there so we can monitor this task. And then we see that our task completed, and over here it says VMware Tools running and current. So we successfully did an upgrade on an individual virtual machine. Now look at this virtual machine over here. This is a Windows server, and it says that VMware tools are not installed on this virtual machine at all. So they don't need upgrading, they just need to be installed. So I could click here to install VMware tools, which would mount the virtual ISO file as a CD/DVD drive inside the guest operating system, and then you would go through the interactive installation of the VMware tools, and then of course need to reboot this virtual machine when completed. That process is pretty straightforward. I'm sure you've done that before on past versions of vSphere. So I'll just click Cancel on that. And then, of course, if you want to check the status of all your virtual machines in the virtual infrastructure to see what their status is related to the VMware tools, you can go to the highest level. In this case, I'll just go to the virtual data center level. Then I'll go to the Related Objects tab. Then to the Virtual Machines drop down here. we see all of our virtual machines. We can scroll to the right over here to get some additional information. And since the VMware Tools status isn't listed here, it's not one of the columns, I'm just going to right-click. I'm going to click Show Hide Columns. And I want to get information about compatibility. So we can check the compatibility of these virtual machines, and then also VMware Tools version and VMware Tools running status. I'll say OK there. And then we've added a couple new columns. I'll scroll to the right over here to see the new columns. And I can see here, I can sort by compatibility and see that I've still got a virtual machine out here that is ESX 4.x compatible, and a couple virtual machines here that are ESX 5.x compatible. So that's virtual machine hardware version 7 and version 8. And then I've got some virtual machines that don't have VMware Tools running or just simply not installed. I don't have any that simply need to be upgraded at this point. So that's a good way to check the status of all your virtual machines related to compatibility and VMware Tools status. One final thing I want to point out is, of course, upgrading individual virtual machines related to compatibility and VMware Tools is pretty easy. But let's say that you have hundreds of virtual machines or thousands of virtual machines that need upgrading. Well, you should be using the VMware Update Manager, or VUM. And I can tell you that, unfortunately, at the point that I'm creating this lesson, VMware Update Manager is currently not compatible with the vSphere web client. So you can't use the vSphere web client with VMware Update Manager. You still can use VMware Update Manager, however, in vSphere 5.1, but it has to be done with a traditional Windows-based vSphere client. And then, of course, with VMware Update Manager, you could perform all sorts of upgrades related to vSphere 5.1, en masse. You could upgrade your ESXi hosts. You could upgrade your virtual machine compatibility, VMware Tools, VMFS file systems, install patches on your hosts, and much more. So with our successful upgrade of VMware Tools, let's go back to our slides. And that brings us to the end of this lesson covering vSphere 5.1 virtual machine enhancements. We learned about how the new virtual machine hardware version 9, also called vSphere Compatibility 5.1, offers us virtual machines that can now be up to 2 times larger than in the past. What's now called virtual machine compatibility with vSphere 5.1 also offers a number of other improvements for VMware View. And then there's the new VMware Tools with vSphere 5.1 that, once upgraded to the latest version, 5.1 in this case, future versions for Windows virtual machines will no longer require reboots when the VMware Tools are upgraded. I walked you through the process of both upgrading virtual machine compatibility and upgrading VMware Tools to the latest version using the vSphere web client with vSphere 5.1. Again, thanks for watching this lesson on vSphere 5.1 Virtual Machine Enhancements.